new attack on a vessel alleged to be transporting drugs in the Eastern Pacific Ocean was claimed to have been carried out by the United States. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro thanked Colombia for its support in addressing imperialist aggression against the country and the region. And a new group of sick Gazan children were transferred to Jordan for medical treatment since the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip began to be implemented. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The United States claimed responsibility for a new attack on a vessel that was allegedly transporting drugs in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. This attack is the 8th of its kind perpetrated by Washington forces in international waters and the first to take place in the Pacific. On this occasion, the War Department claimed to have killed 2 alleged terrorists, providing as the only evidence a video showing an empty boat just before it was hit by a projectile. On the other hand, this new aggression contradicts the U.S. assertions about international drug trafficking routes, given that the White House had previously identified the Caribbean as the main drug route to North America, a statement that opposes multiple reports from international organizations. And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rejected the recent illegal attacks by the United States in the Caribbean and stated that she has directly notified the Trump administration of her disagreement and position on the matter.
Well, obviously we disagree. There are international laws on how to operate in the face of alleged illegal transport of drugs or weapons in international waters. And we have made this clear to the United States government and publicly.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro reaffirmed his government's efforts in the fight against drug trafficking and condemned the accusations made against him by the U.S. President Donald Trump. The president referred to the tense situation in Latin America due to the military deployment carried out by the U.S. government in the Caribbean under the pretext of a war on drugs. In this scenario, Petro provided data on the anti-drug trafficking strategy, which, according to the president, demonstrates Colombia's effectiveness in seizing cocaine. In this sense, Petro emphasized that the justification for the U.S. attacks in the Caribbean ignores this data, as well as those provided by international organizations.
Whether those boatmen are guilty of transporting cocaine or not, in both circumstances, there is a disproportionate use of force that is punishable under international humanitarian law. We have done things differently and not separately from the United States. What we have achieved in my administration is what I want to explain here briefly, is that we have been the most effective government in the seizure of cocaine in the history of the world.
In this regard, the Colombian president stated that his government's strategy has become the most effective in the world in the fight against drug trafficking.
With a public force that has become the most effective in the world in its 3 arms, and with a government that has ordered and built the strategy, it is not that the military forces are on one side, the public force on another, and the president on yet another. No, I set out and built the strategy.
From Venezuela, within the framework of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum taking place in Doha, Qatar, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez denounced the United States military threats against her country and the Caribbean region, emphasizing that its objective is to appropriate the rich natural resources of the Bolivarian nation.
I want to take this opportunity to denounce the war threat by the United States against Venezuela and the Caribbean countries. They want to steal our hydrocarbon, oil, and gas resources, but they also intend, and I would like to take this opportunity to point this out, to disrupt the agreements that Venezuela has, the gas agreements, with the Caribbean.
Additionally, Rodriguez emphasized the importance of developing the energy and gas sectors to satisfy the increased demand that will result from population growth in the coming years.
Economic and population growth will drive energy demand, and it is estimated that by 2040, 70% of energy demand will originate in the global south. Similarly, the world population is expected to grow by more than 500 million people by 2050, primarily in developing countries, where it will grow at twice the rate of developed countries. Likewise, the gas demand will grow by more than 60% by 2040, with China, India, and the rest of Asia driving the growth in demand.
China, India y el resto del Asia. Allí estará el crecimiento de la... And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro thanked Colombia for its support in addressing imperialist aggressions against the country and the region. The president emphasized that while the U.S. military threat looms over the Caribbean, the country is well prepared to defend its territorial integrity, freedom, and peace. He also emphasized the great support that Venezuela has from all its brother countries, especially Colombia, which has neutralized the violent acts that have been attempted against the Venezuelan country. He also insisted that imperialist and psychological warfare threats have successfully countered with serenity and tranquility, fulfilling our duties and with a union and patriotic fervor to defend the Venezuelan people.
De mayo 2020, desde la Guajira colombiana.
On May 3rd, 2020, a group of mercenaries, Venezuelan mercenaries, and some U.S. mercenaries left from Colombia, supported by Duque. Now the whole truth has come out because the organizer, John Woodrock, has confessed everything they did, who financed it, who prepared it, who led it, how did he order it, where did they train them, and he has said everything about, even Duque, then President of Colombia. We also said it because we knew everything even Duque was doing, thanks to the fact that there are many patriots in the military forces and in the intelligence forces of Colombia. And from here I thank you for all the support you have given us for many years. To all those who have supported the military and intelligence forces of Colombia, who have their hearts in Bolivar, and love us as the common homeland of Bolivar.
Y las fuerzas de inteligencia de Colombia que tienen el corazón en Bolívar y nos aman como patria común de Bolívar.
The Venezuelan president also emphasized the need to create a powerful international commission of the world's working class to defend the right to peace and sovereignty in the face of imperialist threats.
Entonces, compañeros y compañeras de cantos y labores, vamos nosotros a conformar una poderosa comisión.
So, comrades, let us form a powerful international commission. Right now, later at 6 o'clock, I want to know the names of that international commission, and that we appoint a comrade to get the skates on, because we need to activate a Congress of the Latin American, Caribbean Working Class Congress with guests from all over the world, very soon to coordinate actions with the working class of our America and the world. Reactivate because I have seen very good communications from workers' unions in all countries. Now we must take initiative. Isn't it true that the working class that wants to support us in all countries, including the United States, is formulating a strategy for peace, and if Venezuela were to be attacked, or Colombia, which is now under threat, were to be attacked, the working class of the world would react and activate all its mechanisms to defend our rights to peace and sovereignty.
La clase obrera del mundo reaccionara y activara todos sus mecanismos para defender.
And in Venezuela as well, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces conducts the Independence 200 coastal defense exercises as part of the 27 territorial actions to protect national sovereignty. The regions of La Guaira and Miranda were activated with the aim of achieving the optimal level of preparation for the state in the face of the threat and in the civil-military police merger to protect the constitutional rights that allow for the normal conduct of citizens' activities. For their part, troops located in Puerto Francés in the municipality of Brión in the state of Miranda began the deployment of the Integral Defense Operational Zone. In turn, in the state of Anzoátegui, the commander of the operational zone activated the Independence 200 coastal defense exercises on all coastal fronts on the entity.
We are carrying out route operations, land route optimizations, air surveillance, exploration, and radio-electric operations, as well as drone patrolling, amphibious operations in some parts of the Venezuelan coast, and saturation patrols, and preventive measures in some parts of the country's coastal areas.
In this context, the Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, also emphasized that these operations are part of the defense of the nation in every territory against any type of threat, and that these operations guarantee the constitutional rights of the Venezuelan people.
So it is not only drug trafficking that is the threat, it is a global threat, but U.S. imperialism wants to impose drug trafficking on the entire world as a global threat, and it turns out that each region, every civilization, every part of the world has its own threats. So we are dedicated to combating drug trafficking, certainly, and effectively as we have demonstrated, but we are also dedicated to preserving peace from every angle, from every perspective, to guarantee, I repeat, the constitutional rights of the people of Venezuela.
Now we are heading to the mountains of Miranda State, specifically to San Pedro de los Altos, where flower cultivation has become a driving force for development for the inhabitants of small towns. There, producers and also workers join forces to boost a sector that could take Venezuelan floriculture to the top of international markets. Our correspondent Álvaro Fragua continues to travel throughout the beautiful country of Venezuela, bringing us this story.
San Pedro de los Altos in the municipality of Guaycaipuro has become a flower production center thanks to its fertile soil that yields crops all year round and its mountain climate. Here the work of floriculturists like Douglas begins in the early hours of the day with the patient care of the mother plants and the seedbed.
It's what we use as mother plants, you know? We take the tips from them, put them in the seedbed, and after about 15 to 21 days, we plant them. By the time it reaches this stage of the process, about 4 months have passed, during which time they have bloomed like this.
Every week, the flowers are sent to the local market, the capital and the east of the country, creating jobs for people in nearby communities. This is an example of a local economy that unites small towns and offers an alternative to migration to large cities.
We mainly work with permanent staff. We need to work more. Once you focus on the harvest, you focus directly on the harvest without neglecting what you do every week, which is pruning, sowing in the seedbed, preparing the soil for sowing, fumigation, and all that.
The producer's objective is clear: to open up to foreign markets. The flowers from San Pedro are of high quality, but the sector is calling for more technical support, fertilizers, and machinery. The economic blockade imposed by the United States and supported by the West makes it difficult to access many supplies and increases production costs.
For me and for our country, it would be great to be able to export because that way we can generate more income.
It's a demand shared by the entire sector and one with which Olga is familiar, having spent her life working in forestry.
Bring more fertilizers and improve the soil with high-end equipment and technology because we really work with our hands here. The quality of the insecticides and vitamins we have for the plants is not the best.
Flower growing is also an act of respect for nature. In these mountains, producers reuse water and protect forest areas, aware that we're all just passing through this world and that the environment also belongs to future generations.
Here we try to respect the forest so as not to interfere with the water or anything like that. We reuse the water. We have a pump down there, and when there is no water, we send it back up so as not to destroy the ecosystem.
Although the work is hard, flower growers find it a source of pride and hope. They tell us that every bouquet contains a part of their effort, their land, and their dream of a more prosperous future.
It is gratifying to see the crop develop. The moment when the plant is growing, when you see it growing, you see the little bud, how it blooms, for example. At this moment you see it blooming, and you cut it and you are putting it together. There you see great happiness and personal satisfaction.
And we have a second short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. For a short break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. A new group of sick Gazan children were transferred to Jordan for medical treatment since the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip began to be implemented. The group included 12 patients and 38 companions who will be treated in Jordanian hospitals in coordination with the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Since the initiative began, Jordan has received 799 Gazans who were transported by land and air in several trips to receive treatment. More than 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are suffering from an unprecedented humanitarian and health crisis since the outbreak of Israeli genocide in October 2023, leading to the deterioration of basic and health services. And Russian forces attacked key energy facilities of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex in the last 24 hours. The Defense Department said that the attacks affected temporary deployment troop points of Kiev troops and foreign mercenaries in at least 152 districts. The targets also included assembly plants, drone storage, and launch sites. The Russian Ministry of Defense has reiterated that the attacks against the Ukrainian military-industrial energy complex are being carried out in response to Ukrainian terrorist attacks against civilian facilities in Russia. And Russian President Vladimir Putin said Thursday that the country will respond firmly in the event of attacks by the Kiev regime with Western long-range weapons on Russian territory. In response to the Kiev regime's insistence on obtaining U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles, the Russian leader emphasized that this was an attempt to escalate the armed conflict. The Russian leader pointed out that dialogue is always a better alternative to confrontation, disputes, and especially war. The president also explained that Moscow have a magic weapon to change the course of the Ukrainian conflict, so sending Tomahawks will only cause damage. And in this context, on Thursday, the Chinese government expressed its strong rejection to these measures after the European Union also announced a new package of sanctions against Russian companies and also its trading partners. Precisely during a press briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wei Kun denounced the actions by both the US government and the European bloc, stating Washington has no basis in international law and the action is not authorized by the United Nations Security Council. Moreover, addressing European sanctions on Chinese companies that trade with Moscow, he asserted that the bloc is in no position to criticize the normal interactions and cooperation between both countries' enterprises. In this regard, the Chinese official encouraged dialogue and negotiation, warning that coercion and pressure will not solve the problem.
China has always opposed unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law or authorization from the UN Security Council. Most countries, including those in Europe and the United States, maintain trade relations with Russia. The EU is in no position to criticize the normal interactions and cooperation between Chinese and Russian enterprises. We urge the EU to stop making an issue of China and undermining China's interests, which is detrimental to the sound and stable development of China-EU relations. China will take all necessary measures to resolutely safeguard its legitimate right.
And in the United States, more than 500,000 federal employees will not receive their salaries following the provisional suspension of the administration's operations, which has now lasted 23 days. The prolonged government shutdown is already affecting military personnel, foster families and other categories of citizens, so the Senate was urged to release funds immediately and put an end to the suffering of Americans. It should be noted that the provisional suspension of the functioning of the U.S. administration began on October 1st after a bipartisan agreement to approve a project of law financing failed, which has caused interruptions in key services and economic losses. In this regard, President Donald Trump declared that he could use the shutdown to implement significant cuts to personnel and salaries. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.